Hi everyone, my name is Godfrey and welcome once again to my YouTube channel where I give you tips on how to go to new countries, manage your life in these countries and achieve your personal goals in life. Now, today's topic is going to be about culture shock. Now, this is something that almost everyone has experienced, and that is if someone has been to a country for a period of longer 6 months, of a period of longer than 6 months. If you've been to a country for that time, in one way or the other, you have experienced culture shock, and it ranges from light cases to very extreme cases where sometimes people may have to be hospitalized because of in extreme cases of culture shock. Now, culture shock, by definition, it's simply a feeling of disorientation. Like it's a feeling of disorientation when someone encounters an unfamiliar environment, and it's sometimes coupled with loneliness. It's coupled with mood swings and all these things. So that way, exactly, that's what culture shock is actually all about, and it's divided into four different stages, and that is the first stage is called the stage of honeymoon, and then the second stage is called the stage of negotiation, and then there is a stage of adjustment, and then there is a stage of adaptation. Now, I'm gonna take you through all these different stages of culture shock, and then at the end of this video, you must be able to understand how you can deal with culture shock in case you move to a new country and you're experienced by similar and you're faced by similar experiences that I'm gonna share with you. I personally experienced culture shock and sometimes it was intense, sometimes it was light, and unfortunately, in that time, I didn't realize that I was experiencing culture shock until I took time to study this topic, and then I realized that I was like, oh my God, that must have been culture shock. So let's start. Stage number one, it's called the honeymoon stage. And that's the stage of culture shock that takes between 3 to 6 weeks when someone moves to a new country. Now, in this first 8 weeks, I mean, it's between 3 to 6 or 8 weeks. And in these first 8 weeks or 2 months, this is when people are usually excited about the new country. They're excited about the food, they're excited about the language, they're excited about pace. So when I say pace, I mean like people are excited about how slow or how quickly the new country is moving. So people are excited almost about everything. They're excited about the differences, the work ethics, the way people do things, and everything looks fun. It's like they're in a bed of roses. It's like a dream come true when you go to a new country and you're experiencing these things for the first time. Now, the second stage is called the stage of negotiation, and this is the stage where reality sets in usually. Now, this is the stage where, and it's usually between 3 to 6 months. It's usually between 3 to 6 months, and this is the stage where people start to realize many things about the foreign culture. That is when people start to realize the differences, and then they're like, people are weird. They start sometimes to even experience anxiety, and they start, and this is when people become very highly irritable, and like because they're in this stage of negotiation, this is when people start to doubt if they really made a right decision to move this country, and then they get pissed very fast. Sometimes it's coupled with mood swings, and a very small thing pisses them off, and this is normal if you're in a foreign country, and it's really helpful uh, if you are aware of these things, because when you go to a foreign country, it will really help you a lot. And this is in this very stage there is something called information overload. So because when someone moves to a new country, they're trying to find out, to figure out how things are done in the new country. They're trying to learn a lot about the system. They're trying to learn about the new people, the culture, and everything. And this is when they ask everyone. You meet very many people and you ask, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it happens oftentimes that people give you different information. This person says A, the other person says B, and then you're overwhelmed by the information, and sometimes it can be so extreme that um, um, it gets it gets pressurizing. You get you feel a lot of pressure on you. You feel like you cannot move anymore, and it's still in this stage of negotiation that um, people feel usually homesick. This is the stage where you really feel like you miss your people so much, and sometimes it results into depression. In extreme cases, especially with students who are studying abroad, when they miss their people so much, they get into depression, and because they are lonely, they don't know how the system works, they don't know where to call, they don't know where to go, and um, and if someone is in a country which speaks a different language, now this is where the reality of the language sets in stage 2 of culture shock. Someone doesn't know how to communicate, because if you don't know the language, you cannot communicate. And and if you're in a country, for example, the way I am in Germany, if I didn't know how to speak Germany, I will always try to associate with people who can speak English, because these are the people who can understand me. And by so doing, it's very easy to make false friends. You speak to people and you think they understand you, and because you're in a foreign country and they understand you, you may think they're your friends, but they may not be your friend. It's just that because they are the only people who can speak the language that you understand. So oftentimes, this is the stage where people make false friends. This is the time where people are exhausted, anxiety, feeling homesick, feeling, and doubting if they really made the right decision to move to this country. And that is why this stage is called the stage of negotiation. You negotiate about your stay in a country. And but at this very point, I would also love to emphasize that this is the stage, this is the most difficult stage. This is the hardest stage of being in a country. So that is the first 3 to 6 months. It's usually the hardest stage of being in a country. And when you get over this stage, then you may move um, to stage 3, and that is called the stage of adjustment. Now, this stage goes between usually 7 to 12 months, so it's up to a year. And this is when a person starts to get accustomed to the culture of the new country. Someone um, someone gets used. This is where people develop a normal routine. Like, people get to know where they know where to find what, they know where to call if they need something. This is when life gets a little bit easier. And the reason why the stage of adjustment is a little bit easier than the second stage is because people know because when you're in a when you're in a new country and you're in this stage of adjustment, you know what to expect from people. So you either don't expect a lot from people because of your past experience, and this is when you also develop problem solving skills. Like, you develop skills on how to develop and how to deal with your own personal problems in your life. And um, sometimes people call this stage the stage of positivity, because this is the stage where you start to see all the beautiful things about the new culture. You start to see the positivity about the culture. Whereas in the second stage, you start to see all the bad things about the culture. You're like, these people are rude. How can they say that? How can their culture be so different from our culture? In second stage, you're seeing only negativity. Third stage, you start to see the positive things about culture. Now, I'll give you an example. I personally, being in a new country, being in Germany, when I'm experiencing this stage of adjustment, I got to realize how helpful sometimes the German people can be. When you are in Africa and people talk about Germany, it's like there is this negative picture about the German people. And every time you say, I'm flying to Germany, people are like, how can you fly to Germany? Of all the countries in the world, why are you flying to Germany? The people, and people think there is nothing good about the German culture. People just think about, racism every time you talk about Germany or going to Germany for work, they're like, why? It's so dangerous as a black man to go. But being here for a long time, I have been able to realize the good values about the German culture. They are really German people who are very friendly. They accept people the way they are. They are, and that is something you can only realize when you stay in Germany for a longer time. Of course, I'm not saying that I've not experienced negative things. I cannot say that I've not experienced racism here and there, but there are also good things. And I think it's also good to talk about the good things, not only the bad things. Exactly, that's stage number 3. And then stage number 4, it's called the stage of adaptation, or it is sometimes called the bicultural stage. So in this stage, this is where, for example, when someone has been living in a country for longer than a year, if it's a country that's speaking a different language, the person may be able in this time to speak the language of the country perfectly well, and then they actually don't feel foreign anymore. And this is when this is when the people try to incorporate their home country culture into the culture of the new country. And what do I mean with this? So, for example, this is when people know, for example, um, we the African people like eating ugali, so we call it posho or ugali. And if you are here and you stay here for long, that's when you start to appreciate it, and you're like, today I'll eat pasta, or I will eat potatoes because that is German, and then tomorrow I will eat ugali because it's a typical African dish. So you start incorporating both of them into one culture, and that is called the stage of adaptation. Now, at this stage, that's when people start to doubt if they should go back in their home countries. This is the stage where people start to think, should I really go back? And that's if they have spent almost like 2 or 3 years in a new country and they are not sure if everything still looks the same back home. And it's very easy to think when you are in a new country that I have friends back home, I have people that understand me, I have people that I miss. But it's a myth, actually. It's not true, because when you are away from a country for 4 years, you cannot expect that everything back home is the way you left it. So if you had friends, they're probably married, they have children, they're doing other things. If you had colleagues, they are working, they are developing their companies. So things change. But when you're in a foreign country, you always tend to think that everything is the way you left it. And when you go back, you're actually shocked because you feel like a foreigner in your own country. And but if I would add to these 4 stages, actually from personal experience, I think what makes the biggest problems of being in a new culture for me, I think they were language, for example, and then other people experience things like technology gap, especially when you come from a country which uses a lot of tech, countries like Japan, countries like South Korea. I mean, you come from Africa and go to one of these countries, Japan, South Korea, which use a lot of tech. Everything is e-money, e-banking, everything. So because of the technology gap, you may get really, really stressed to learn how the system works and how everything goes. So that's another thing that can make a problem. So language, technology gap, and then there is another thing called interdependency. If you go to a new country, it's most likely that you need someone for the first time. I mean, there are people who are naturally gifted on going to new countries and they start their life. It's just there are people who are gifted like that. They can manage, they can multitask. But for the majority of people, and that is like 80%, they need someone to get their life going in a new country. Now, for me, I would say I'm the kind of person who can usually manage life on my own, and I'm trying to do everything on my own in Germany. But that doesn't mean that I don't ask people here and there for help. So that's the other thing. And then the other thing that makes life in a new culture really difficult is boredom and homesickness. So sometimes you really feel bored, like you just don't know what to do. Sometimes if you're not at work, you're maybe on a Saturday or Friday evening, for us who are like Christians, you're assured that on Sunday you're going to be in church, you're going to meet some people, you're going to interact with a few people here and there. But if you're not a Christian, maybe you go to a bar and dance the whole night and stuff. But somewhere, somehow, you will, in one way or the other, feel some kind of boredom and homesickness. But anyway, so that is all I wanted to tell you about culture shock. And in case you found this video helpful, don't forget to put a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you have any questions about moving to a new country, don't forget to write them down there in the comments, and I'll be doing another video about it. So it's never only scaring, but it's also good. There are also advantages added to moving to a new country. You can achieve a lot of things. You can open up your opportunities. You can career goals, meet the right people, new relationships, and so on. And it also gives you a lot of experience, international experience and cultural experience. And that's the beauty in the differences in cultures. If you choose to see it in the positive way, it turns out to be beautiful. If you choose to see it in the negative way, it will also mean to be negative. So thank you so much once again for watching. Greetings all the way from Germany. And I love you all. Stay safe. Bye.